Deputy Nolan, 6.5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Cian Corla. Deputy Buttimer, I'd like to say that I'm delighted to have an opportunity to speak on this topic. It's one that we debate regularly in the House, and rightly so, because it's certainly one that's extremely important and impacts on so many people's lives. When we talk about people with disabilities, it goes back to a little bit what the Minister said. We talk to them as if we're talking about a country or kind of a generic group of people who all have the same wants and needs and same desires and abilities and so on. We're talking about a collection of individuals, each with vastly different experiences of life and different needs. And it's only really when I got into this job, and you meet with so many different people from so many different walks of life. And as Deputy Buttimer has said, the opposition aren't only people who meet people in this country. You can, from one end of the scale, you can have a child with profound and severe intellectual and physical disabilities who will spend most of their life in bed and a few hours a day out of bed and probably never leave their house for their entire life. To another person who you will meet who will have a disability, and you will engage with them and talk with them and will never know. The breadth of individuals we're talking about is so wide. And that's why I thought one of the things that Deputy Ross said, that we should have a senator for the disabled, I thought it was just such a stupid thing to say, and I'm sorry to say it in that way, that one person could represent such a vast array of individuals. Each of us here in this House, each of us, all of us in the Senate, should be representing people with disabilities. To say that we'd have one person, that should be their job, and they'd be the spokesperson, it's a nonsense, to be quite frank. It betrays a lack of understanding of the degrees and the variance of people who have disabilities in this country. Because again, you're not talking about just the individuals themselves. They have family members, they have carers, they have brothers, sisters, children. You're talking about so many different families who have such different circumstances that we really need to have a grown-up and an informed decision when we talk about informed discourse when we talk about disabilities. I want to say one thing, and that's about resources and so on. And people stood up and said, is it fair that people with disabilities should have to suffer? Is it fair that for the want of this? No, it's not fair. None of us want that. None of us think it's fair that the country should have gone on its knees and we should have a financial crisis. But we're trying to fix it and do our best to sort it out. I never tell anybody that the state the country's in is fair or it's right. It's totally unfair. And we have to pay, and the country is paying for a very unfair situation. But just because something is unfair doesn't mean that you can just wish it away. You have to deal with it and do your best and try and protect people as best as you can. I want to talk a little bit about that concept of individuality, and I think that's where, because individuality links to choice, and choice leads to freedom. And that's what people, I think, we need to be talking about. And it's what the Minister, in fairness to her, and all credit to her since she came into this job, has talked about from day one, is empowering people to live the lives they want to live, and seeing them as individuals, and seeing them as people who have different wants, different needs. And I remember the Minister came down to Galway to an Ability West AGM, and she spoke about money, money that people would have and what they might use it for. Some person might, and little things, like they might use it to go to the park for the day. They might want to go to the cinema. They might want to go into town and have a cup of coffee. And those are the type of things, real things that people do in their lives that we need to be talking about. If we talk about abstract, about services and people with disabilities have lives, they have wants, they have needs, and they have things they'd like to do. And that's what we should be servicing. And I like this approach that moving towards person-centred funding, where the family or the person can decide what they want, is all what it's about. And it will completely change when it's done. It will completely change the manner in which we provide these services and the way in which they're done. Because when you have choice, you give people options to say, well, no, I don't want that. Or I'm not happy with that service. Or I'm not happy with the way I was treated there. Or I'm not happy with the accommodation I was in here, and so on. And that's when you get the standards improving and you get people being reacted to and listened to as individuals. And it will also solve another one of the big problems, which is what the Minister has again pointed out, the scattered approach, whereas in some areas you can have excellent facilities, in other areas you don't. And but you have people with choice and the ability to pick, the services will come to those people because there'll be funding there to provide it, and it'll sort out once and for all that institutional-centred approach we have. I just want to say that getting there is a long way off. And for one thing I've learned in politics is that change takes time, it's slow, and you have to dismantle what's there at the moment, put in place a new system while not hurting those in the meantime when you're going through that transition. I want to just say that the service providers that I deal with in Galway on a very regular basis, the Brothers of Charity Services, based in Renmore, but with facilities throughout the county. Ability West, who do excellent work in community homes and are based in Salthill. One example of how I think the disability sector was protected, and the motion says that disability sectors were targeted. I know, and I can vouch specifically for the work of the Minister in reducing the proposed budget cut for disabilities this year to 1.2%. And that was done having listened to service providers in Galway when the Minister came down, having listened to what the troubles that they're in, the difficulties and so on, and the service providers this year have told me that it's an ask, but it's something they can manage. And that's the kind of engagement that we need, and it's also something that the Minister needs to be commended on. But this movement towards individuality is not going to be done easily, and it will also require a change in structures. And when you're reducing a budget to change a structure, when you're making something more efficient and you're taking money from something to provide it somewhere else, is not a cut. Reform is not always a cut. And people can play on that kind of budget change. So I just want to say that this is a very important topic. I commend the Minister on her work, and her speech today details actions that have been taken, resources that have been allocated, and some positive steps that have been taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. I'll call on Deputy Billy Kelleher. Sharing time with Deputy Eamon O'Cleave and Sandra McLennan. You have 7.5 minutes.
Thank you.